There's no comparison at all between the Marxist murdering vermin who are there now and the people whose name they trade on, people like the original Michael Collins, for instance, who did fight a fight for freedom against a foreign power, no doubt about it. There's no comparison whatsoever. But that's the reason the Irish haven't got anyone organising anything, because they've got a phony nationalist party which shoots people who try to talk about immigration. So makes life difficult. And also, they've only got a few million people. Whereas here, we've got the most prosperous and largest white nation in the world, basically on a par with Russia, but apart from them, streets ahead of anybody else, and there's nothing. It's got to change. There's so many good people in this country. There's good people here in this room. And you know there's lots of people who aren't here, if for one reason or another. There's so many people who understand the issues, the quality of intellectual argument, the quality of books and so on. The whole website explosion for nationalism came out of this country. There's so much going on. There's so much potential here. There's so much more freedom than we've got anywhere else. And you simply squander it. It's not being used properly. One criticism of this conference, and it's all the other conferences, this one is better for everyone who's spoken. But we had them in the British National Party as well, up to a few years ago. It's a conference where everybody talks about what's wrong. Why? Why are we trying to convince ourselves of what's wrong? We all know what's wrong. What we should be doing, far more. When you've got youngsters, okay, you need new recruits, you need to teach them what's wrong. But the old hands, the really committed people, the people committed enough to come here and spend the weekend here, and so on, there's no point us discussing, quite frankly, what is wrong. We need to be discussing what we're going to do to get the power to change things. And there's many things that need to be done. Some of them aren't political at all. Getting a constructive music scene and a constructive cultural scene which teaches our people, particularly our young people, to be proud of their culture and their identity. That's a very important thing. And I can't do that. David Duke can't do it. But it's the young people to do that. It's for us to help them. That's one thing that can be done. But the one core thing that sooner or later someone's got to grasp the nettle is going to the people in some way politically. And here America has no excuse at all, because for all the organisational advantages that we've now built ourselves in Britain, or the Front National have built in France, we have never, ever, ever, none of us, had anyone able to get the kind of votes that David Duke has had right here in this area. 60% of the entire white vote. It can be done. But why on earth is he the only person trying to do it? And why, perhaps most important, is David starting at that level without having 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 people in the same area, having got elected on basically the same ticket as, I don't care if it's the local dog warden. Something to show that we are not a bunch of crazy-eyed, swivel-eyed lunatics from over there, but people out of this community who do things for this community. As one of the speakers said earlier on, we have to build people power. The kind of revolutions, admittedly in some cases financed by George Soros and so on, with all those orange jackets, don't believe that was spontaneous, do you? But the kind of mentality, the kind of feeling amongst the population, which makes it possible for a George Soros to go in and have that effect, we have to do here as well. And if we don't do it, then we will lose. Now, Americans aren't constitutionally incapable of doing that. There was a time back in, I think it was the 1890s, I'm sure Kevin Alfred Strom will correct me if I'm wrong, as it was before then, when a fellow called Tierney, single-handedly with ordinary working people on the west coast of America, stopped it becoming Chinese more than 100 years ago. Yeah? By organising ordinary people. Or in this neck of the woods in the 1930s, where Senator Huey Long, before all the modern technological advantages we had, built a mass movement aimed at helping ordinary people resist oppression by a wickedly exploitative elite. He did it then, and he was able to hook up with Father Coughlin further in the north in the industrial areas. So don't tell me that Americans are too individualistic or too bloody minded to organise and actually build themselves a movement, because it's been done before. What is missing is the will from a handful of people to say, yup, here we are, we will provide the leadership. And it's got to be done quickly. It must be done quickly. Not because by 2050 you're going to be a minority in your own homeland, because actually this place is so big that if you could have 5 or 6 states and it was only you in that homeland, I think it'd be a paradise. I'd want my kids and my grandchildren to go there. It'd be fine. It wouldn't actually matter that much. But that is one of the problems. If you're looking at the United States as a whole, you've got till 2050 and then it's, kiss it goodbye, you've got to go somewhere else, because it won't be yours anymore. But more important than that, we've got a far tighter deadline, and that is to have an effective fighting political organisation recognised by a lot of people, not as the party they support, but as a party that they've at least heard about. They at least know what it's for. In this case, perhaps not a party, because, as David's shown, you can work within your, frankly, bizarre system that I scarcely understand. Doesn't matter. The important thing is working within the political process to show people that there is a potential for a change through political means. That's what they need to see. Even before they need to turn to you, you've got to have it in place beforehand. And this age of scarcity, which is going to follow the biting of the peak oil crisis in a very short space of time, is a once in 200 years opportunity. No radical movement has ever had a time like this about to be on it, where you can guarantee that the living standards of ordinary people are going to have to fall year after year after year, because all their living standards in the end are built on debt, and all that debt is underwritten basically by rising energy production from this enormous fossil fuel bonanza which our masters have had, and they've blown. They've just thrown it away. They've thrown it away in all sorts of lunacies. They've thrown it away, in this country in particular, on vast fortunes of money wasted on affirmative action. But they've also thrown it away on just giving people a far higher standard of living than, to be honest, their productive capacity actually entitles them to. It's been one big free handout to a freeloading population, and our opportunity is about to stop. And if we're not organised for it anywhere in the world, in our world, before it strikes, it'll be too late. Someone else will take advantage of the opportunity, or society will just spiral down into an anarchic mess that nobody can do anything about at all. It'll become a failed state, like a Lebanon, something like that. You have to be organised in advance. In Britain, we're almost there. We've got now this solid 5% block. Well, other radical movements in the past, far left, far right, or whatever, a couple of years before a crisis have had a damn sight less than 5% support. So 5%, as far as I'm concerned, is fairly satisfactory. But I wish I was where Jean-Michel Girard and his colleagues are, with 18% solid support, and nearly half of all white French people having voted for them at some stage in the past, because they're one crisis away from power, I'll tell you that.